Hello. Well, we're going to look at simple two-dimensional geometric models now. These are the kinds of models that we're going to need to represent and recognize the flat parts that we're going to work with. They're not very complicated models, and they're sort of simplifications of the kinds of objects that we're really going to want to model if you're building a real system. But they're perfectly reasonable for working with our kind of educational goal here, and that's to get you to understand what it is that we need to do for modeling. The objects that we're going to look at have been simplified. We're only going to deal with linear lines, straight lines, and curves. This represents only a portion of the kinds of shapes that we want to work with, but it's not so bad of a place to start for our training purposes. If we're going to look at flat objects, there's a variety of different ways that we could represent them, and I've listed a couple here that are based on regions. Okay, and that's pixels or quadries, and we're not going to go in that place. We're really going to work with the boundary type representations, and this is representing the outside around the edges of an object. There are several different ways to represent that, and again we're going to work with pretty much the curves rather than the vertices, and maybe a little combination of the two. There are different ways you can do that, either listing all the individual pixels or chain code. We're not going to go there. We're going to use the boundary segments instead to represent the objects. So here is the two primitives that we're going to use. The first one is a line segment. We're going to represent that just by the endpoints of the boundary, and we can use a little code L saying that it's a straight line segment connecting the two. And the other is a bit of a circular arc segment. And here we need something a little bit more complicated. We need the two endpoints, and we need some sort of a center point of the circle so that we can determine the radius. Okay, at the moment these are sort of arbitrarily positioned in a coordinate system, and we'll want to move things into place in order to make a full representation of the object. So here's a kind of example of some of the objects that we're going to be looking at. Here's one of the little sort of wedge shapes that we're going to be working with, and you can see here, starting from the coordinate system origin, going around the boundary, you can see that I've also made a model of the object, sort of starting at the origin with straight line segments, going to each of the vertices in turn, going around the object. Here you can see a couple examples of pictures of the object. Similarly, if we have a part that has a circular arc in it, again the idea is much the same. We start at the coordinate origin, add some straight line segments, stick in an arc segment like we just described, and continue all the way around to close off the boundary. And again, here you can see a couple of pictures of the object. Okay, so this is a very simple kind of representation, but this is all we really need in order to represent and therefore recognize the kinds of parts that we're going to be looking at in this lecture series. So that's all for this bit of lecture. Thank you.